Well, welcome everyone. I think I'll call this meeting of October 21st, 2020's chairs meeting to order. And so welcome. I know that all of your committees are already hard at work and organizing the last of your open vacancies on the committee. There is a fairly well-developed vacancy and we hope current vacancy list on the town website. And so I'd encourage each of your committees to check that. And if you don't see the vacancies there, please contact Jerry Romano in the select board office so that they're included. You may have already noticed that on the town website is news and notices reminding and welcoming and encouraging people to sign up for some of these vacancies. And the select board is going to be reviewing the green card process and policy and recruitment procedures. They've already begun that process, but we'll do so over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be asking all of you for your feedback on what's working, what's not working. Are you getting the skills that you need in terms of open vacancies to meet your committee charge, et cetera. So you'll be hearing more about asking for your input on that. Also related to sort of organizing tasks, and Carmen, you may want to speak briefly to the town meeting calendar. We're waiting for the official town meeting calendar to be published. That includes publishing the town election and caucus dates. And we're waiting for the clerk's office to finalize some issues with that, but obviously she's a little busy right now and has asked for some additional time on that. And that is a discussion that's happening between the town manager and Kari's office. So did you just want to talk about the dates a little bit, Carmen?
Sure. Our thought was that rather than having our annual town meeting in April as we traditionally do, that we would move it out to a little later in the year when it's likely to be warmer, so that if we are still in a COVID situation, really recommend that we have the meeting outdoors rather than indoors. We would rather in doing that. And working around the high school calendar for graduation and so forth, we've settled on, I believe it's the second Sunday in June. Is that right, Linda?
Yeah, June.
And right. That puts us a week after high school graduation, and it puts us a week before Father's Day. And it puts us in June when it, one would hope, would be warm enough, but not too warm to have an outdoor meeting if we need to do that. And the meeting is currently scheduled for a Sunday so that we could have it outdoors. If miraculously we have a vaccine and we're not worried about COVID anymore, then of course we would do it indoors. And the rest of the normal deadlines with respect to opening and closing the warrant and hearings and so forth are all backed up from that date. So the warrant will, I'm not actually looking at it, Linda, but the warrant will open a month or 6 weeks later than
So
normal. Are you looking at it, Linda?
Yeah, we're looking right now towards the end of February for the warrant to open.
Right.
So
that gives everybody a little more breathing room, since we just finished annual town meeting and normally people have the whole fall to work on everything that they would put forward in the next annual town meeting.
So thank you for that impromptu update. Thank you very much. The other comment I'll make before I turn it over to the committees to report out is that some of you may be aware that the select board has just recently reviewed their value statements as well as their goals for FY21. And that's now been approved after taking into consideration a review of the Envision Concord document, as well as new issues that have come before the town in the last year and some outtakes from our last town meeting. And so those should be posted by this morning, actually, on the town website. And I would really encourage all of your committees to review those that document. And in many cases, it reflects work that your individual committees are doing or have said we expect some kind of final report from you during the year for further action. So with that, I'm going to open up to some committee reports. And again, I'll do it in the lineup that I see on my screen. So I'm looking at Paul Bain from.
Hi, good morning. Got to make sure I'm not on mute. Yes, I'm not. So I'm representing the NMI StarMet Reuse Planning Committee. What we're doing, as you probably know, is trying to figure out what to do with a 43-acre Superfund site that's in the process of being cleaned up. So just very briefly, we have been meeting regularly on Zoom. We have in the last month conducted a site visit for the select board, for some members of the Natural Resource Commission and a few members of the public. And at the end of this week, there'll be another site visit. And the site visits are conducted by the contractor who just, is a walk around the site. But this Friday, some of the members of the Recreation Commission will be walking around the site. And the reason why we're involving these various parties is the redevelopment options can and will involve various committees and their potential buy-in to that. So our goal is we're continuing to work on the options. Our goal is to present several of these options to the select board by the end of the year in a report and to make recommendations for the next steps. So these options are really the first step in the planning process. We're going to be making recommendations on how to take these options to the next step. And to select these options. The site won't be ready for reuse or redevelopment for at least 4 to 6 years. So we have plenty of long-term opportunities in conjunction with other buildings and other assets in the town. So we're continuing to do that and finally to coordinate with the contractor and with EPA. So at the beginning of this year, the legal documents were signed, committing the money for the cleanup of the site, very rigorous cleanup. The contractor is now planning called the remedial design. And some of those design elements can benefit the reuse of parts of the site. For example, there's one area, the site is going to need a lot of clean fill to replace contaminated fill. Where that fill comes from, it can come from off-site with thousands of trucks coming in, or it can come from certain areas of the site that have never been touched. So it's to borrow the soil and move it around. So we've asked EPA to give us a net environmental benefit of doing that, removing some trees and leveling the ground versus bringing in fill. And that would help if we want to redevelop that part of the site. That would help with some leveling of the site. So there's interplay between the planning and the cleanup going on right now. So that's sort of where we are.
Good summary. Thanks very much. Melissa.
Good morning. Melissa Salfield. I represent the Historical Commission. For this coming year, I think I mentioned before, we are proposing to change or amend the demolition delay bylaw. We will be submitting a warrant article. There are really 3 specific changes we're working on this year. One would be that the bylaw would apply to all houses built before would change from 1951 to just 50 years or more older. We also would like to change the date which the bylaw takes effect. Right now, it's when the applicant submits their application. We would like it to change it so it's from the date of our determination, which would really, we hope, strengthen the bylaw, because it would be a real year from the time that they are actually told that a delay has been imposed. And third, we just are altering the language a little bit to say that it would also apply to properties that are eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. These seem like perhaps rather small changes. We know there's a fair amount we would like to do, but judging from the past experience at presenting before the town meeting, we know that a lot of things can stir people's ire, and we would just like to get this passed. We are very concerned with the number of tear downs. In fact, we just imposed a delay on a property at 1710 Lowell Road, which is a very historic property. It's the oldest house on the northern portion of Lowell Road. And in 1754, a group of folks met there to determine the establishment of Carlisle. It also is associated with a number of historic Concord families. So we are hoping to work with the homeowner to perhaps find a buyer for that property, and to encourage him not to tear the house down. We have not been terribly successful in the past. We've had a few successes over the past decade, but disturbingly, a lot of properties have gone down. So that's basically what we are working on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the preview for the next town meeting, the bylaw coming, it sounds like. Thank you. Okay, Carmen, did you want to say anything further? Or?
Sorry, nope, nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Mary.
Morning, Mary Hartman. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. I have three things that I'd like to share with this group today. The first is based on the breathing room that we have because the town meeting was delayed. The Finance Committee has some time to devote more time to looking at debt as part of our budget, debt service specifically, because that is not usually looked at as part of the review of our operating budgets. So we developed a debt subcommittee to look at debt service. So we did this because debt is 10% of our total budget. So that's quite a large amount. The other reason we decided to take a closer look at debt is because we have the middle school coming up, which will burden. Preliminary estimates say that about a $90 million middle school will add about $1,000 to the median property tax bill. So that's something we'd like to take a closer look at. And also, we thought that the work of the debt subcommittee would dovetail nicely with the work that the Long Range Capital Planning Committee is doing. So we've formed this group. We're just starting. We're really just getting grounded as far as the work we want to do. But I wanted to let you know that we have that committee formed. The second thing I want to discuss is that the Finance Committee and the School Committee, and I see Cord is here, the Finance Committee and the School Committee are planning to have a joint meeting to start talking about the budget. And when I say the budget, I don't mean the detailed budget for FY22, but more just an overview of the process and some of the terms we use when we talk about budgets, so that when we really get down to the nitty gritty of talking and reviewing the FY22 budget, we won't stumble over things like OPEB or circuit breaker or things like that, so that we get ahead of the actual guideline process. We can get ourselves grounded on what are some of these terms mean, what is the budget process. And I think this will be really helpful for the new members of the Finance Committee, and I think will be helpful for the new members of the School Committee as well. And the third thing I wanted to share with you all is that at our last Finance Committee member meeting, some of the members were talking about remote participation and how they really liked meeting via Zoom. And they were wondering that once the pandemic is over, once the governor declares the state of emergency is over, what are our options as far as continuing remote participation in meetings via Zoom? Now, we have a very, very big committee. We have 15 members, and many of our members work full time. And they were very eager to continue remote participation. We took a look at some of the regulations. There are regulations from the state level and the town level. And these regulations really encourage in-person meetings. So we thought we would just bring that up. I know this is premature. We're going to be meeting by Zoom for several more months. But the Finance Committee is starting to think about what can we do as far as encouraging people to participate remotely, or enable people to participate remotely, and maybe relax some of the town regulations, which are actually more stringent than the state. I think that this would make attendance at finance committee meetings better, and also it might make it more able for people to sign up for meetings if we were to do that. So that's just something we're starting to look at. We thought this might be interesting to other committees as well as we come out of the pandemic. That's all I got. Thank you, Linda.
I suspect we're going to see a lot of changes in that realm, statewide, much less nationwide, but statewide in terms of have to reconsider some of their policies, I
Right.
would guess.
Right.
Okay, I see Ruth is with us. Ruth, would you like to comment on anything this morning?
Sorry about that. Yes, please. I'm representing the PEG Access Committee today,
Okay,
and we are unfortunately 2 members down. Circling back to your earlier comment, Linda, about vacancies, we are shopping hard for 2 new members. We are also involved in with Comcast discussions regarding our franchise agreement. Both Concord and Carlisle are coming up for us in the next 2 years, maybe. And it's a long process to work through what that agreement is. And it has to do with rates and revenues, and it'll be complicated. Not the agreement, but life as a PEG access channel will be complicated by people's options for viewing content that are no longer limited to cable television. And that will affect the viability, some would say, of Comcast provisions. We'll see. Minuteman Media Network has been limited by the COVID emergency. Maybe you have noticed that. The very fact of all of the Zoom meetings is not requiring as much Minuteman, I have to say it, MMN participation. They are very busy. They have a full complement of staff. They are busy working, but they are not going out and about because volunteers cannot come to the high school for very good reasons, and we support that very much. The fact of the matter is, it's a hometown opportunity. We always are seeking people who are interested in local television and participation. That is unchanged. And in the meantime, we are trying to keep our little fingers out of the operations of MMN and focused on content, what we can do to encourage additional content and opportunities for viewing in the town. And we're down by 2.
all right, thanks very much, Ruth. Okay, looks like David, you may be next. David Carr.
Okay, I found my button. Yes, David Carr, Chair of the Tax Fairness Committee. So we are pursuing our senior tax exemption with the State House now. We have sent out our letters to to Tammy Goudet and to Mike Barrett, and yeah, we have to figure out how much of a pest do we want to be about this, but we're hoping that they can act on it before June so that we can vote on it and have a continuation of the program.
So David, I can just briefly report that the town manager and I spoke with Senator Barrett's office last week, and they are aware of the timeline concerns. And so we just need to submit some the official copy from our end, and they're ready to act on that.
Okay,
So
good.
it's in process and it's on the town goals.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, good.
The committee will be happy to hear. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I'm done.
Rick?
Rick Eifler, Concord Housing Authority. We're back to full membership, thanks to a joint meeting of the Select Board. We appointed Stephen Durain to fill our empty seat until the next elections. That does mean, however, we'll have potentially 2 elections coming up in the spring or whenever the elections happen. The only complication to that being possibly that the state is still in limbo, I think, on how to treat tenant members of the board. And so any new legislation that happens between now and then might affect how the elections take place. But we do have a tenant member, so it probably wouldn't affect us. So we're probably looking at two elections in the spring for membership in the Housing Authority. We have formed an executive director search committee to replace our current executive director, who has been trying to retire since beginning of coronavirus, but has luckily stuck with us through all of this. Are looking ahead to maybe coming out of the worst of it at the end of the winter. We're looking to maybe start have everything ready for a serious advertising of the position at the beginning of the year. So we're probably have our first meeting of our search committee, executive director search committee next week, and put everything together by the end of the year to start advertising the first of the year. We, our Commonwealth Avenue House project, we are starting the survey work there to confirm that we are on the good side of the 50-foot setback from the wetlands when we build our little house. And if the surveyor can confirm that, will be the next step would be to start hiring, to officially hire the architect for the project and begin the permitting process with the Natural Resources Commission and with the planning board, because it will officially be even though we're building one house, it'll officially be a planned residential development, because it's going to have 2 houses on a single lot. And we have been working long and hard, Marianne, especially our executive director, has been working long and hard to reposition our 18 federal units from public housing to locally owned housing. And it's hit a little bit of a stumbling block at the end here, as we have been working with the town's assessor to establish whether we will continue to be paying the same property tax on the 18 properties after the repositioning as we paid prior to the repositioning. The Concord Housing Authority has been paying payment in lieu of taxes, which is a reduced tax burden compared to paying full assessment taxes. But the initial report from the assessor is that they're not looking favorably on continuing that pilot into the transfer of ownership. And so we're still working on that, because of course, as affordable housing, we simply can't afford to pay full taxes on the property. So we're currently have a lawyer working with the town to try to convince them that the pilot program taxes should continue. It has in other towns, but our assessor feels differently. So we're working on that and hope to get a better answer in the near future. So we can, that's really the last thing before we file all the paperwork. And that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. A lot going on there, I can see. Let's see. Peter?
Yes, hi, thank you, Linda. Peter Nobley, I'm with the Historic Districts Commission. I think pretty short report. We're continuing to work on the library parking. Now the main library has come back. I've lost track of how many meetings we've had on this project, but we are continuing to work on a revision to the accessible parking strategy for the main library. And really the only other big thing we're working on is there's a possible new historic district, a group of homeowners up at Jenny Dugan Road. It's a deck house neighborhood, is looking to become an historic district possibly. So we've done some site visits, we're doing some research, and that's an ongoing process. So that may come up at this year's town meeting, but we'll have to see. Our administrator is about to have a baby, so that's going to challenge our committee's work. And that's really about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Nat.
Good morning. Nat Welch. I am co-chair along with Richard Hollander of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Committee. I have a couple of things and then Richard has a couple. We recently had a site walk for the last half mile of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which runs from Powder Mill Road to the Sudbury line. And we are planning to have set up a meeting with abutters so they can review the plans and answer any questions. We're probably still a year away, at least, from doing anything there, but we'd like to make sure any new abutters have a chance to speak up and understand what's going on. Many of you may have noticed the bridge over Route 2. They're starting to pour one of the pilings. They've done work on both sides of Route 2 to clear the route, and it's proceeding well. The committee voted at our last meeting to send a request to the select board to expand our charge, to take into account the new Minuteman Bikeway extension that Bedford is building or will be building. They've completed a 25% plan from the end of the Minuteman to the Concord town line. It's going to be at least 2 or 3 years, but we'd like to get ahead of it and apply our expertise to helping the town, all the stakeholders think about the impact of what we might be able to do on what's now called the Reformatory Branch Trail, which many of you know comes onto Lowell Road, right near Trails End Cafe, near Kai's Road. So we're waiting to have a conversation with the select board about that, but we're very excited about the opportunity. And finally, we've done a little bit of outreach to Bedford and to Sudbury and Acton, just to make sure we're staying well connected with those folks. And Richard, you wanted to give an update on our committee membership.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
As was mentioned earlier about committee openings, we're specifically looking for a woman for our committee, and someone who might have school-age children. As I think you're aware, there's a lot of kids who use the rail trail now, and we expect that'll continue into the future. And our current committee membership doesn't reflect anyone in that demographic. So if you or you know anyone who's interested in participating, I would just want to make a specific pitch that we have some names, but so far I have unable to line up somebody who would kind of balance our committee out and also represent a younger family. So thank you for thinking about that.
Good. And I would, Carmen, did you want to comment?
I did. I think that one of the places that we might think about looking for volunteers for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, as well as all committees, is asking for the Parent Teacher Association. There's several of them who have newsletters to include in their newsletters a notice of openings. I think, Cord, I'm guessing that someone from the school committee would be able to identify who the current chairs of those committees are and email addresses, so you could send those kinds of requests to them. But that's the demographic you're looking for, and the best way to reach them is through the newsletter that they get.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah,
We also have a number of parents involved in Bike to School this year through the Concord Bikes organization. So that would be a good way to make a specific request. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just make a quick comment to both you, Nat, and Richard, and that is regarding your charge. And the select board does have your request, and we will schedule that as quickly as we can. Have you had an opportunity to talk to Delia Kay about this in terms of your ideas and plans? That might be helpful.
Yes. So before we even wrote the letter or brought it up in committee, Richard and I talked with Delia and Marcia just to kind of understand what the right, what we should be thinking about, what we'll be prepared for. So we've tried to do that. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks very much. Okay, let's see, Elizabeth.
Hi. The zoning board, it's kind of nothing major to report. Kristen and I met from the planning board. Hi, Kristen. Met, and we're talking about, we're trying to coordinate more the planning board and the zoning board when talking about some potential zoning amendments and just in general figuring out how we can coordinate a little better. So we're in the middle of setting up a time for the boards to meet. And I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jake.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jake Swenson. I'm just taking over as chair of the Concord Climate Action Advisory Board. I think you all probably have heard from Brian Folds in the past. So I just transitioned into this role, and Brian, I believe, is going to be transitioning into a different role, but not confirmed yet. And we are really, I'm not familiar with what Brian has shared in past meetings, so I won't go over what we've been working on over the last couple of months. But I think overall, what I'll say is that we're transitioning now from really a huge part of our focus being the Climate Action and Resilience Plan, which launched this summer. And working closely with Kate Hanley, the Director of Sustainability, on providing input and advice on that document and the plan. And now we're moving towards really the next phase of our work, which is to help support implementation of that plan. So thinking through what our work plan is going to be for the next 6 or so months as a group, so that we can be most effective in providing advice, support, and really, ensuring that we're driving progress on the plan. It's very broad. It has a lot of different categories there, and CAB is listed as a champion in one of them and as a partner in others. So we really are going to be focused in on where we have some expertise on the board. And we believe that, we can bring that expertise to bear, because we recognize that the town has a lot of capabilities in other areas to really support this. And we want to make sure that we're being effective. So that's really going to be our focus for the next couple of meetings. And hopefully we'll have more of a built out work plan that we're going to sort of work against as we head towards the next town meeting. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks very much, Jake. Jim.
I'm Jim Terry, Public Works Commission. The biggest project that we have going is Cambridge Turnpike. You're probably aware that that's taken a long time. The expectation is that it will be finished the end of this construction season. However, there have been difficulties down near the pond. There's a lot of unstable ground there, and so they're having additional work and making sure that the supports for the road are going to be appropriate. Winter equipment work is beginning. We're going to get ready for whatever happens to the community snow-wise. A transportation advisory committee has been established by the town manager. The Public Works Commission or the Public Works Director has received a number of requests regarding sidewalks for students crossing roads and things like that. And there seems to be a fairly different viewpoints as to the safety for different ones. And so the town manager has established this committee that has members from the school administration, public works, engineering, and other things like that. So those are things that are in the works, but it will probably not result in anything positive until next construction season. And that's it.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, Kristen.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kristen Ferguson with the Planning Board. We are primarily working on any proposed bylaw changes for town meeting. We're bringing the two-family bylaw that we worked on that we deferred from last year. And then we've been working on the Thoreau Business District redevelopment ideas and vision. That's in preparation for perhaps a special town meeting in the fall. We're still gathering public input about that. We're looking at 2 subdivisions, the application for 2 subdivisions. And then we recently looked at an PRD for a Habitat for Humanity home, 2-family home on Main Street. That's about what we're working on.
Kristen, I assume when you said revisiting some kind of special town meeting in the fall of 21, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Court.
Hi, good morning. So a few things for us. One, school committee. Well, first of all, let me start with, I'll be representing the region as well as Concord today. And perhaps at future chair meetings, you'll see Sarah Wilson, who is the chair of the regional school district, representing both districts. As you well know, our task each day is to try to keep the schools open and safe. We have no plans to suspend activities when it gets cold, other than quickly suspending if health indicators tell us to. But right now, unlike some other districts, we're going day to day, and we're confident, guardedly confident, that if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to see very few cases and hopefully no in-school transmissions. That's the good news, is that we've been able to pick up the cases very quickly, few in number. No indication that the transmission occurred in school buildings, and the tracing and the follow-up has thus far worked. So knock on wood, we're going to stay the course and keep kids and faculty healthy. We are mindful that the faculty and the administration and the support staff are a little bit frayed at the edges. The toll is starting to show. So the school committee and the central administration are trying to attend to the pace at which they're working right now. If you were to interview a teacher, he or she might say, I'm working twice as hard and I'm not getting the results I want. And we're glad they're aspirational like that, but we're worried about their fatigue level. We have no new plans for potential testing because there's been nothing significant offered to us that changes the staggering cost of testing were we to choose to implement it. The state has given us vague information about possible antigen testing options, but vague doesn't really allow us to debate it and consider it. And Mary Hartman mentioned the session with the FinCom, and very good news, I think. I think it's heartening. Carlisle FinCom is also interested, and this would be good bridge building with the 2 towns in our regional school district. And I don't think this will be a surprise to Mary. We're leaning toward December 8th as a session for school committee and 2 FinComs. It'll be a public session, but it will be a workshop, and the content that FinComs and schools will bring to the workshop is such that we probably will carefully avoid lots of Q&A just so that we can have it be a content-driven session. And again, that will be open in probably December 8th. We've looked at the cherry sheet that came in. No surprise there. Doesn't change anything that came in a few days ago. There's been reference to board and committee memberships, and yeah, we're happy to share parent-teacher group information with you. I will note that we discussed this at an earlier meeting today, and our finding is not particularly unlike what's happening town-wide, and that is we have a paucity of folks who are seeking leadership positions. Not many people are fond of meetings, I guess. And so what we're finding is many people, parents and citizens, are stepping forward for events. They'll come for a one-time event and help out and do magnificent work. But the long haul committee work is apparently not as appealing, unfortunately. That is the little bit I have from the schools, other than finally to say we had our own goal setting and, if you will, norming and protocol workshop last week. And we're of a mind it started off the odd school year very effectively with a rather significant turnover in our school committee membership this time. So things look good so far. Thank you.
So Cord, I had an opportunity to view your most recent, what you're calling norming and protocol session. And I have to say, I thought it was very effective and productive.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, we all are keen on committee effectiveness, and I think we all know that implied norms don't get us far. We've got to express what we think is so, and then we can protect the effectiveness of our committees. So we were trying to do just that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move to Eric.
Good morning, Eric Van Loon, Tax Relief Committee. Short and sweet. We have we're the committee that solicits donations from the town for individuals to contribute to a fund to help economically stressed families be able to pay their local Concord real estate tax. We send out a letter once a year, and on the back of that letter for the last several years, Hugh Cargill Trust has also made an appeal. So 2 letters, 2 appeals in 1 envelope, 1 stamp. Our letter is, both letters are written, ready to go with assistance from the town staff. And we're waiting until November. There's an agreement by direction of the select board, actually, that we try to avoid overlap with other community appeals, such as Concord Carlisle Community Chest. So we're going to wait till November, but the letter will be going out then. That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see who else. Peter Lowett.
Yeah, good morning. Peter Lowett, Concord Housing Development Corp. And we're working on a number of projects. Junction Village, we're starting work on items towards closing in June. For the town, the key piece is the open space definition, outlining the allowable uses for the land, which is not part of the residential project. So that, look for something on that. On 229 Main Street, we're also participating in the town community to review the options for the property, especially the affordable housing component. On 930 Main Street, that's the Habitat for Humanities project. It just received its permit and is finishing up its paperwork to start marketing to eligible applicants. In the future, we submitted a CPC application for funds to do another project similar to 930 Main Street, which could term as converting a market rate home to an affordable one. And that's all I have to report.
Did you hear Melissa's report earlier?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So there may be some discussions.
Overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Julissa? Thank you, Peter.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. So I'm on the celebrations committee for the town. So we've had a couple of meetings just going over a calendar and how that's going to be affecting us this year in 2020 to 2021. So we hope to finalize the calendar hopefully tomorrow because we have a meeting, and just discussing, you know, involvement with the our town network for recording these events so people can participate without showing up for the event, because it's going to be kind of private. We're limiting, per the select board's recommendations, limiting, we're going to be notifying everybody, but limiting how many people are actually present during the celebration. So this year there have been a lot of cuts, including our scouts being able to fold flags, which is very disappointing for some of our, well, especially the town, because it's a huge involvement for all the scouts here. But we're also not doing the flag burning piece of the celebration as well. That will be held on a separate location. So right now, Veterans Day looks like it'll be televised, and this year we're just not sure how the rest of our calendar is going to look. But the Concord tree lighting event, we're working with Concord Rec. It looks like that may be also a virtual event. So we're trying to work together to see how we can sort of help them out with that. But I think it's just going to be kind of on a sort of month by month or event by event progress, especially because of COVID. And usually we do get a larger turnout for these events. So, and our membership is also low. However, we have had a few people interested. So hopefully we will get more people on our committee. And that's all from Celebration. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful that you're getting some interest to join you. Okay, is there anyone else that I haven't called on?
Yeah, Ed Nardi.
Ed, thank you.
Welcome. Ed Nardi, representing the Natural Resources Commission. Speaking of the commission itself, I'll be assuming the chair role with this evening's meeting. Unfortunately, Greg Higgins, the former chair, has agreed to stay on as a commissioner. So we do have a full commission. And I think looking forward to the slate of hearings coming up. Can't see anything that's really controversial. So business as usual. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carol Ann.
I'm Carol Ann Hannon, Chair of the Council on Aging Board. Council on Aging is moving a lot more programming on Zoom. Now it seems like we're going to be on that platform for a while. Everything is going well. They have good participation with the community. They're going to be starting some bereavement groups. They normally do this every once in a while, but they're going to be adding a lot more short session group meetings. Because of the pandemic and loss and how difficult it is to deal with it, they think it's going to be good for the community. There's some question about the AARP tax preparation program, since that's always been on site and they don't see how they're going to be able to do it off site. So they're still planning on trying to figure out what they're going to do for that. Our membership is down. We still are looking for one new member. If anybody knows anyone who's interested in seniors, let me know. And that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay Howard of the Library Committee. I don't have too much to report, but we did have an exciting event last week with the official groundbreaking on the library expansion. It was a low-key event given the circumstances, but a variety of groups were represented at that official groundbreaking ceremony. So it'll be an exciting time in the library as we can all kind of get a glimpse of the expansion as we're passing by over the next few months. The committee is also going to revisit the long-range plan for the library. As you can all appreciate, COVID has significantly impacted the library, but folks at the library see a lot of positives that have developed out of, the virtual programming and other things that the library has kind of pivoted to offer. So we're going to be kind of revisiting the last few months and seeing what the library has done and trying to incorporate that into a long range plan. And that's all I've got for today.
Good. Sounds like you're going to be busy.
Certainly will be.
Jean.
Thank you. Jean Goldsberry, Commission on Disabilities. I apologize for my delay getting to the meeting. I got a call from a Concord resident about some accessibility issues right as this was supposed to start. So, but we received a report, as did the town, on access for people who have hearing impairments. And that group came to our last meeting to talk about the recommendations that they had to make buildings more accessible for folks who have hearing impairments. And that will be something that we'll be working with them and hopefully with the Mass Commission on Deaf and Hard of Hearing over the next few months. We received a complaint from a Concord resident about a building that he feels is not accessible, or the parking is not accessible. So we're reviewing that right now. And probably the most significant thing that we've been really working on is the accessible parking for that new wonderful expansion of the library. We want to make sure that the parking is accessible and also safe for people who have disabilities. We did support the library's request to the Architectural Access Board for 2 variances. One was to not build a ramp on the front of the library, on that main front entrance, because of the historic nature of that front entrance. And we agreed, given that there will be 2 accessible entrances to the library, the current one, which is on the Sudbury Road side, and the new entrance right into the middle of the new expanded part of the library. So based on that, we supported them. And they also asked for a variance to not make all of the shelves as accessible as the ADA guidelines are. These are, again, historic shelving units in the library, and it is accessible to someone using a wheelchair. But for someone who uses a large motorized wheelchair, they would not have enough turning radius to get around from one side around into the next aisle. So we agreed with them, given the historic nature of those books, and that they would have someone, a staff person, be willing to go and pull books for someone. And we also asked them to have a smaller wheelchair available so that if someone had a larger wheelchair, could transfer to the smaller wheelchair that would make it around that tight corner. So given their response and their desire to certainly make the building accessible, we felt that these were reasonable accommodations to that, to also retain the historic nature of the building.
Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome.
Anyone else that hasn't had an opportunity to speak this morning? Okay, hearing none, and I don't see any. I have heard that the early voting has been utilized vigorously, and I would just remind everyone to vote. So thank you, everyone, for your contributions this morning, and we certainly can hear some cross-committee information that's important to each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.